When I got the divorce papers, I acted like I didn't understand a thing and stopped paying his loans. He only found out when they towed his car from the office parking lot, right in front of all his coworkers. You know that moment in life when you think, that's it. I'm done being a fool? For me, it happened the day I saw a message pop up on his phone from some Kristina. Sunshine, waiting for you at our spot. Right next to his phone was a stack of divorce papers he planned to slip to me whenever. That's when I decided to play his game, but with my rules. And trust me, it worked out even better than I imagined. But let's start from the beginning. My name's Anna, I'm 32, and until recently, I was the perfect wife to Dmitry, a successful manager. We lived in a 2-bedroom apartment in Moscow, which I paid for with my freelance design income. Dima worked for some big company and always talked about important projects and meetings. I believed him. Looking back, I was blind. All the signs of cheating were there: working late, new habits, keeping his phone face down. I thought it was stress or career ambition. I even admired how driven he was. Idiot, right? I remember one night in October. He came home late, smelling of unfamiliar perfume. I was making his favorite cottage cheese casserole, something he always asked for when in a bad mood. He walked past without even looking, mumbled something about being tired, and locked himself in the bathroom. He left his phone on the dresser. I swear I wasn't trying to snoop, just wanted to put it on charge because the battery was flashing red. That's when the message popped up. Sunshine, waiting for you at our spot. Miss your hand's red heart, from Kristina. My stomach dropped. Scrolling up, I saw months of messages, plans, intimate photos, meeting arrangements. And all this time, I was saving money for his dream trip to Turkey, cooking him borscht, ironing his shirts, and planning for kids. Then I noticed the divorce papers on his desk, already filled out, just missing my signature. He was going to give them to me tomorrow. After 3 years of marriage, after all our plans, that's when it hit me. What if I didn't react the way he expected? No crying, no begging, no drama. Just play along. The next morning, over breakfast, he tried to start the talk. He was nervous, fiddling with his spoon. Finally, he slid the papers over. I looked at them like I was seeing them for the first time. Divorce? But why? I thought we were fine. He clearly expected a scene, but instead, I shrugged, signed the papers like they were a gas bill, and handed them back. He was stunned. That same day, I started my plan. I checked our finances. Turns out the apartment was in my name, bought with my money. The car too, for tax reasons. But the loans? Oh, he had plenty, over 1 million rubles worth. And guess who was co-signer on all of them?
Yep, me.
He was going to disappear, leaving me with the debts and start fresh with Kristina. But not anymore. The next day, I went to the bank and explained I was divorcing and needed to understand my obligations. A sweet bank clerk walked me through everything. It turned out that as a co-borrower, I had the right to know everything about the loans and even influence how they were handled. For example, if the main borrower didn't pay, the bank would come after me. But if I told them I couldn't pay because my circumstances had changed, and divorce counts as exactly that, the bank could remove me from the loan. The manager even winked at me. Write a request to remove yourself as co-borrower, she said. Then the bank will either demand early repayment from him or make him find a new guarantor. I filed the request for all his loans that same day. And that's when the fun began. Dima was living like nothing had happened. In the mornings, he went to work. In the evenings, he came home late, obviously spending time with Kristina. At home, we barely crossed paths. I acted like I was busy with work and divorce paperwork. He even became nicer. Maybe guilt was eating him up, or maybe he was just happy everything had gone so smoothly. Sometimes he brought me coffee and asked how I was doing. I smiled and thanked him. Perfect ex-wife, right? 1 week passed, then 2. Dima completely relaxed while I was getting ready to move out. I found a nice 1-bedroom in the city center, hired a designer for my own studio, and decided it was finally time to do what I love for real, not just freelance. Then, on a Thursday evening, exactly 3 weeks after signing the divorce papers, Dima came home looking like a ghost. His hands shook as he searched for the apartment keys. Anna, his voice was trembling. We need to talk. Seriously.
About what?
I asked innocently, not looking away from my laptop. The bank called. They said you removed yourself as co-borrower on my loans. Oh, right, I said, pretending to remember. I forgot to tell you. My lawyer advised it, after a divorce, it's best to separate all financial obligations. Makes sense, right? He dropped into a chair. Anna, do you understand what this means? They want me to either pay everything off right now or find a new guarantor. That's rough. I nodded sympathetically. How much is it anyway? Over $1 million, he almost shouted. Where am I supposed to get that kind of money? Maybe Kristina can co-sign for you? I said thoughtfully. She is your girlfriend now, after all. His face turned gray-green. How do you? Who told you about Kristina? I shrugged. I saw the messages on your phone by accident. No big deal. We're divorced. It doesn't matter anymore. He held his head in his hands. Anna, you can't do this. We've been together 7 years. 3, I corrected. And they were good years. But now we each have our own life. He started mumbling about how it was all a mistake, how Kristina didn't mean anything, how he'd do anything to fix things. I stood up, looked out the window, and said, Dima, you chose this. You wanted freedom. Now you have it, with all the consequences. The next day, he was begging me to put my name back on the loans, promising to break up with Kristina, swearing he loved me, even offering that long-promised trip to Turkey. But I stayed firm. Too late, Dima. The papers are already at the bank. Besides, why would you want your old wife when you've got a young girlfriend? He paced around the apartment like a caged animal, calling friends to see if anyone would be a guarantor. But who's going to sign for 1 million rubles, especially for a man who cheated on his wife? The bank wasn't joking. They wanted the money or a guarantor. Dima tried to get a new loan to pay off the old ones, but his credit was already damaged from missed payments. Turns out he'd been barely making ends meet for months, spending money on gifts and dates with Kristina. Meanwhile, I was calmly packing my things. I planned to move that weekend. Where are you going? Let's talk about this. I'll find a solution, he pleaded. I'm moving, I said flatly. The apartment's mine, but you can stay here for another month while you sort things out. He couldn't understand where this cold determination in me had come from. Even I was surprised at myself. Was this really me, the same woman who used to apologize for every little thing? That Friday, what I'd been waiting for finally happened. Dima rushed home in the middle of the day, sweating and out of breath. Anna, they took the car. Who? I asked, calmly packing books into a box. The bailiffs. Right from the office parking lot. In front of everyone. I pictured it. Dima walking out after some important meeting, only to see his shiny black BMW gone. The security guard explaining it was repossession. Co-workers whispering. His boss asking uncomfortable questions. That's rough. I nodded sympathetically. But you know the car was collateral on your loan. How did they move so fast? We just talked about this yesterday. Guess the debt was already critical. I shrugged. Banks don't like to wait. He paced the room. What am I supposed to say at work? How am I supposed to get to meetings? I have a huge presentation tomorrow. And how have I been getting around all these years? I asked calmly. Metro and buses. You'll get used to it. That's when he exploded. You did this on purpose. You're getting revenge. I stopped, turned, and looked him straight in the eye. Dima, I didn't do anything. I just stopped solving your problems. See the difference? And it was true. I hadn't done anything bad. I'd simply refused to be the safety net for a man who betrayed me. That weekend, I moved into my new apartment, half the size, but right in the city center. Most importantly, it was mine. No loans, no obligations to anyone who didn't value me. Dima called once a day with updates about his latest disasters. Kristina found out about the debts and freaked out. Work started questioning his financial stability. Apparently his company checked credit histories for people in senior positions, and now debt collectors were calling and showing up at his door. Meanwhile, I was settling into my new life, setting up my home office, meeting new clients, taking Italian classes. Remember that trip to Turkey I once dreamed about? Forget it. I decided I deserved more than that. A month later, Dima moved back in with his mother. I rented our old apartment to a young couple with a baby who had been looking for a home for 6 months. I gave them a low price, better to rent to good people. Another month passed, and I got a message from an unknown number. Anna, it's Kristina.
Can we meet? I need to talk.
Curiosity won. We met at a cafe near my place. She was younger than I expected, maybe 25. Pretty, but already with tired eyes. I want to apologize, she began. I didn't know you two were still married when we started seeing each other. She was lying, of course, but there was genuine confusion in her voice. It's fine, I smiled. Everything worked out for the best. He says you set him up with the loans on purpose. I laughed. Kristina, do you know how much debt he has? She nodded darkly. That's why I wanted to talk. He's asking me to co-sign a new loan, says he'll use it to pay everything off, and we can start fresh. And what do you think? I asked. She hesitated. My parents say it's dangerous, but he's upset I don't trust him. I looked at her with sympathy. Young, in love, naive. I'd been her once. Listen, I said gently. I'm not going to tell you what to do. It's your life. But think about it. If a man is willing to put you in debt just to make his life easier, how much does he really value you? Kristina stirred her coffee in silence. Then, quietly, she asked, Did you love him? I thought I did, I said. But love is when you want to protect someone, not dump your problems on them. We sat for another half hour. I told her my story, not with anger, just as facts. She listened, sometimes nodding. When she left, she said, Thank you. I know what I have to do. I didn't hear from Dima for 3 months. Then I ran into him, by chance on the street. God, how he'd changed, thin face, cheap jacket, eyes dull. He recognized me and tried to walk past, but I called out. Dima, how's life? As you can see, I'm alive. And work, he asked. I got fired, he admitted. They said the company needs reliable people. For a moment, I actually felt sorry for him. No matter what happened, we had still been close for 3 years. And Kristina? I asked. She left, he muttered. As soon as the problem started. I didn't tell him I'd warned him this might happen. I just asked, so what now? I'm working as a courier, renting a room, paying off my debts little by little. Maybe in 10 years I'll be free. He looked at me closely. You look good. And he was right, I had changed. I'd lost about 5 kilos, got a haircut, started taking care of myself. But more importantly, I had confidence now, something I never had before. I'm doing great, I nodded. My studio is growing, I have clients. Next week I'm flying to Rome for vacation. Not just vacation, my project partners live there too. Dima nodded and started to leave, but I called after him. Dima, wait. He turned, hopeful, probably thinking I'd offer him help. I wanted to say thank you, I said sincerely. For what? He asked, confused. For showing me who I really am. If it hadn't been for the divorce, I would have stayed that quiet, convenient wife forever. Now I know my worth. He stared at me like I was crazy. You're thanking me for leaving you? Not for leaving, I said, but for giving me the chance to find my real self.
And you know what?
I truly was grateful. Yes, it had been painful, humiliating, and scary. But the moment I saw those divorce papers next to his phone, full of messages from his lover, something inside me woke up. A backbone. Self-respect. Before, I always thought about others first, how not to upset them, not to disappoint them, not to cause them trouble. That day, for the first time, I thought about myself and realized I have the right to honesty, loyalty, and respect. And if I don't get it, I don't have to stay. Dima walked away, and I stood there on the street thinking how much life can change. A year ago, I was a wife who saved money on herself for the sake of the family budget. Now, I'm a successful designer flying to Rome tomorrow. Discussing an international project in Rome was incredible. Not just because the city is beautiful, but because of how powerful and independent I felt. I met with Italian partners, walked through ancient streets, and, for the first time in years, felt truly alive. In a cafe on Piazza Navona, I met Alessandro. He was an architect, around my age, divorced, raising a daughter. We talked all night about work, life, dreams. And for the first time in ages, I felt a man was interested in me not as a convenient wife, but as a person. When he walked me back to my hotel, he said, "Anna, you have something special, a kind of inner strength." And I thought, yes, I do. And it appeared the moment I stopped letting others decide my fate. When I came back to Moscow, I was a different woman. Projects kept coming in, my studio expanded, I even had to hire an assistant. I joined a gym, started learning French, and for the first time in my life, bought myself an expensive dress for no reason at all. Then my mom called. "Anya, what's this? Dima's mother says you ruined him on purpose, that he lost his job because of you." I sighed. Of course, in other people's eyes, I was now the evil ex-wife who took revenge on her husband. But it didn't bother me anymore. "Mom, I just stopped paying someone else's debts. That's normal. But he was your husband."
He was.
"He isn't now. And those debts? I didn't create them." Mom was silent for a while. Then she said, "You know, you've changed. You've become strong. Is that good or bad?" "It's good," I answered firmly. "I just realized how much you didn't love yourself before," she said. And she was right. I really didn't. I thought my value was in how useful I was to others, my husband, my parents, my friends, and my own needs were always at the bottom of the list. Now it's different. I'm not selfish. I've just learned to respect myself. And you know what? People started treating me differently too, with more respect. Then, about 6 months ago, something happened that I never saw coming. I was sitting in a restaurant with clients, discussing a new project, when I noticed a familiar figure at the next table. It was Dima. Not the worn-out courier I'd seen before, but almost like his old self, wearing a nice suit, well-groomed, and sitting with a woman around 40. He noticed me too, but pretended not to recognize me. His companion, though, openly looked over at our table. I was the only woman sitting with 3 successful men, and I could see her curiosity. After the meeting, I stayed a bit to finish my coffee. That's when Dima walked up. "Hi, Anya." "Hi. How are you?" "Fine," I said. He sat down across from me. "I found a new job. The pay's less than before, but what can you do? I'm slowly paying off my debts. My mom helped borrow money from relatives." I nodded, then finally asked the question I'd wanted to ask for a long time. "Dima, do you understand why I acted the way I did back then?" He was quiet for a moment, playing with a napkin. "I guess you were hurt because of Kristina." "Not just because of her." I shook my head. "Dima, you used me. For 3 years, I was your safety net, your housekeeper, your cover for all your loans. And the whole time, you were building a relationship with someone else." He blushed. "I never meant to hurt you. But you did. And the worst part? You weren't even going to be honest about it. You just wanted to hand me divorce papers and disappear." He stayed silent, so I went on. "If you'd come to me and said, 'Anya, I've fallen in love with someone else. Let's break up like adults,' I would have agreed. It would have hurt, but at least it would have been honest. Instead, I just stopped being convenient for you. I stopped solving your problems at my own expense." He sighed. "Maybe you're right. Back then, I didn't think much about anything. I thought problems would just solve themselves." We sat quietly for a while. Then he asked, "Are you happy now?" "Yes," I answered without hesitation. "For the first time in my life, I'm truly happy." And it was the truth. Not that fake smile I wore during our marriage, but real, deep satisfaction with my life. Dima nodded. Then maybe it all worked out for the best. After he left, I sat there for a long time, thinking about how much had changed. A year ago, I would have been crying over a broken family, blaming myself, trying to fix everything. Now, all I felt was a calm sadness for the time when I believed in a love that never really existed. But you know what? I don't regret anything, not even those 3 years with Dima. They taught me something important. You can't buy love with sacrifices. You can't tolerate disrespect hoping that someday someone will appreciate you. Real love doesn't ask you to make yourself smaller. It helps you grow and be your true self. And I have that kind of love now. Alessandro comes to Moscow every 2 months, and I visit Rome. We're not rushing into anything serious. We're just enjoying a relationship where both of us can be ourselves. He never asks why I don't make him breakfast or iron his shirts. Instead, he's genuinely interested in my projects, supports my ideas, and is proud of my successes. That's what real partnership looks like. Recently, I heard something interesting. My friend Lena happened to run into Kristina at a shopping mall. Turns out, she's now dating a married businessman in his 50s. He's wealthy but stingy, gives her gifts only on big holidays, and even then, nothing expensive. Kristina complained about her life. He promises to divorce his wife but keeps delaying, saying the kids are small, his wife is sick, and so on. Funny, isn't it? She found someone richer than Dima, but ended up with the same story. A woman waiting, enduring, hoping, while the man drags things out and changes nothing. I guess some people will spend their whole lives looking for someone to solve their problems. And then there are those who realize they have to solve their own problems, and those people attract partners who don't use them but complement them. You know what I've learned over this past year? The worst thing in a relationship isn't cheating or betrayal. The scariest thing isn't betrayal. The scariest thing is losing yourself, melting into another person so much that you forget who you are. For 3 years, I lived someone else's life. I dreamed their dreams, solved their problems, adjusted to their needs, until I became convenient but completely uninteresting, even to the person I was doing it all for. When I finally came back to myself, I realized I'm actually an interesting person. I have talents, ambitions, plans. I have opinions. I have a sense of humor and the ability to make decisions. Sometimes people write to me, "I'm a reader of your blog." Yes, I have a blog now, mostly about design, but also about life. Many people share similar stories. Husbands who take, mothers-in-law who control, selfish kids. And they always ask me, how do you find the strength to change things? I tell them this. Strength comes when you realize you deserve more. That your life is not a tool to make someone else happy. That you have the right to say no to people who don't value you. You don't need revenge. You don't need to prove anything. You just need to stop sacrificing yourself for those who don't deserve it. As for Dima, recently I found out he married that woman I saw him with at the restaurant. She's divorced, has 2 kids, works as an accountant. I heard they had a small, modest wedding. And you know what? I'm happy for him. Maybe with her he'll be more honest. Maybe he'll finally learn to value what he has. People do change when life teaches them lessons. And if he doesn't, that's not my problem anymore. I have my own life now, full of projects, travel, and plans for the future. Next week I'm flying to Milan for a design exhibition. Alessandro will be there too, and afterwards we're going to Tuscany. He wants to show me his parent house. That's how I live now, without looking back, without regretting the time I spent. Yes, I lost 3 years to an illusion. But now I know exactly what I want from life and from relationships. To be with someone who respects me, who doesn't see my care as something they're entitled to, who's interested not just in what I do for them, but in who I am. And most importantly, I will never again sacrifice my principles for some fake version of family happiness. Real happiness doesn't require sacrifice. It's built on mutual respect, honesty, and support. If you're reading this and you see yourself in my story, know this. There's always a way out. Yes, it's scary to change your life. It's scary to be alone. It's scary to disappoint people who are used to taking advantage of your kindness. But you know what's scarier? Spending your whole life never knowing who you really are. Growing old as the convenient victim who owes everyone everything. We all have the right to happiness, the real kind, not the fake smile for show. We have the right to respect, not a patronizing pat on the head. The right to a partner, not a taker. And don't be afraid of being called selfish. That's the favorite line of people who live at your expense. You've changed. You've become so cold. You used to be kinder. It's just their way of pushing you back into the role of the convenient victim. The truth is, you've started respecting yourself and demanding that others do the same. That's normal. That's healthy. That's amazing. My advice? Stop being convenient. Be real. Find your own voice, your own wants, your own boundaries, and protect them as fiercely as you once protected someone else's comfort. And to those who judge me for not forgiving or for ruining my ex-husband's life, I say this. I didn't ruin anyone's life. I simply stopped building someone else's happiness at my own expense. Dima chose lies and manipulation. He took out the loans. He had the affair. He decided to divorce me without warning. I just refused to clean up the mess from his choices. And you know what? If I had forgiven him, gone back, and started paying his debts again, nothing would have changed. He would have learned that he could do anything to me, and I'd accept it. Forgiveness isn't about letting people use you without consequences. It's about letting go of the hurt and moving forward. I forgave Dima, but that doesn't mean I had to stay with him or fix his problems. You can forgive someone and still not want to see them again. You can let go of the anger, but not keep the relationship. You can wish your ex happiness, just not at your expense. Healthy boundaries aren't cruelty, they're self-care. And if someone calls you cruel for protecting yourself, maybe you should ask, do they really know you at all? It's been over a year since the day I saw the divorce papers, and I don't regret a thing. In fact, I'm grateful for that lesson. Now I know, no one has the right to control my life without my consent. No one can use my kindness against me. And no one will get more from me than they're willing to give in return. That's not selfishness, it's self-respect. Selfishness means thinking only of yourself. Self-respect means thinking about fairness for yourself and for others. People often ask, didn't you feel sorry for Dima when his problems started? Of course I did. I'm not a monster. I felt sorry for the man I spent 3 years with. But pity is not a reason to let someone use you. Pity for someone who betrayed you is a dead-end feeling. It doesn't heal or change anything. It just pushes you back into the role of a victim. Self-respect is different. It's a creative force. It pushes you to grow, to get stronger, to become better. And here's my advice. Don't wait for life to change on its own. Don't expect someone else to make you happy. Don't believe that patience and sacrifice will automatically be rewarded. Take responsibility for your life. Decide what you will tolerate and what you won't. Choose who you want to walk through life with and who you need to leave behind. This is your one and only life. Only you decide what it will be like. Start small. You don't need to turn your whole world upside down in one day. Stop apologizing for your needs. Stop doing things you hate just to avoid upsetting someone. Learn to say no without explanations. No is a complete answer. It doesn't need extra words. Spend time and money on yourself without guilt. You have that right. And stop waiting for permission to be happy from people who don't benefit from your happiness. Life has taught me this. People treat you the way you allow them to. If you tolerate disrespect, you won't be respected. If you let people use you, they will. But the moment you start valuing yourself, the world changes. People who respect you will appear. People who only wanted your convenience will disappear. This doesn't mean you have to become cold or unreachable. It just means learning to tell the difference between those who deserve your care and those who take it for granted. Today I woke up in my apartment in the center of Moscow. The sun is shining outside. I have a job I love. A man who loves me. Plans for the future. And most importantly, I know my worth. This is not a story about revenge. It's a story about not losing yourself in a relationship. It's about how love can't be one-sided. It's about the fact that every person deserves respect and honesty. If you're reading this and going through something similar, know this. There is a way out. Yes, it will be scary. Yes, people will judge you. But on the other side of that fear is the life you truly deserve. Don't listen to those who say you must always forgive, endure, and sacrifice yourself for family. A real family is where you are loved and valued, not used. If there's no mutual respect in your relationship, it's not a family, it's exploitation. True love never asks you to become less than you are. It helps you open up and grow. And remember, you are not required to save anyone at your own expense. Every adult is responsible for their own actions. My ex-husband made his choice when he decided to cheat and lie. I made mine when I stopped taking responsibility for his debts. We each got what we deserved. He got the freedom he dreamed of, only to find out that freedom comes with responsibilities, including owning up to your actions. I got the most valuable thing of all, self-respect. And I will never give it up again. You know what amazes me most? How quickly everything can change. In just a few months, I went from being a quiet, insecure wife to a confident woman. I learned that you don't need years of therapy or huge life changes for that. You just have to stop betraying yourself and stop giving up your needs for people who don't value them. When you do that, you get back so much energy you used to waste trying to please others. Now that energy works for you, for your goals, your dreams, your growth. Looking at my life now, I see that I'm finally living, not just existing. I have goals I set for myself, dreams I'm making real, and a relationship based on mutual respect. Most importantly, I have me, the Anna I almost lost while chasing the illusion of a perfect family. If my story helps even one woman find the strength to change her life, it's worth it. Remember, you deserve real love, respect, and happiness. And if you don't have that now, it's not your fault. But it is your responsibility to make changes. Don't wait for someone else to make you happy. Be happy first, and the right people will value it. Take care of yourself, love yourself, respect yourself. And never forget, you have the right to say enough. 6 months after that meeting in the restaurant, Dima sent me a message. Anna, thank you. You were right. I needed to learn to take responsibility for my actions. I wish you happiness. I smiled and replied, same to you, Dima, same to you. And in that moment, I realized I had truly forgiven him. Not because he apologized, but because I no longer felt anger or hurt, only calm gratitude for the lesson that made my life better. That's how my story ends, not with tears and drama, but with quiet confidence in the future. Not with revenge and destruction, but with creating a new, better life. If you've read this far, thank you. I hope my story is useful to you. And remember, you have the right to be happy. Start using it. One more thing. Recently, I learned that Dima and his new wife had a baby. I'm truly happy for them. Maybe fatherhood will teach him more responsibility. I also have news. Alessandro proposed. Not the grand kneeling kind, but in a very Italian, natural way. Anna, what if we try living together for real? I'm still thinking about my answer, not because I doubt my feelings, but because I now make decisions slowly and consciously. One thing I know for sure, if I say yes, it will be a union of equals, not a story of a rescuer and someone drowning. People often ask, weren't you scared to be alone? Honestly, at first, yes. But you know what's scarier? Living with someone and still feeling lonely. Sharing a bed with a person who doesn't respect you. Making plans with someone who is already making plans with someone else. There are 2 kinds of loneliness. One is emptiness, when you're alone and unhappy. The other is fullness, when you're alone but whole, content and free. And the second is 1,000 times better than any relationship that makes you compromise your dignity. Take care of yourself, dear readers. You deserve it. 5 years have passed since I signed the divorce papers. It was an October evening in Rome, especially beautiful. Golden leaves danced over the cobblestone streets, and the warm glow of the street lamps made everything feel romantic. I stood on the balcony of our apartment in the historic center of the city, thinking about how much my life had changed. Inside, Alessandro's 12-year-old daughter, Giulia, was doing her homework at the kitchen table. Anna and Giulia didn't become friends right away. At first, the girl was jealous of her father's new partner. But little by little, the mistrust turned into warmth and eventually into real love. Anna never tried to replace Giulia's mother. Instead, she became her older friend and mentor. Anna, can you help me with Russian? Giulia's voice came from the kitchen. She had been studying Russian for 3 years and was proud of her progress. Anna smiled and walked in. On the table was a grammar notebook. Giulia was carefully translating a text about Russian traditions, asking about difficult words now and then. Look, did I write this right? Giulia showed her notebook. Anna looked it over and nodded. Very good. Just here, you need a different ending. They corrected the mistakes together, and Julia closed the notebook with satisfaction. Moments like this made Anna feel just how naturally she had become part of their family. Alessandro hadn't lied when he said she had brought a new life to both of them. Anna's design studio now had branches in 3 countries. Most work was between Moscow and Rome, but projects came from all over Europe. She specialized in creating warm, family-friendly interiors and was a respected expert in her field. The sound of a key in the door meant Alessandro was home. He came in with a bouquet of white roses and a mysterious smile. "Ciao, bambina," he said, kissing his daughter on the head. "How's the Russian going?" "Anna helped me. Now I understand everything," Julia answered happily. Alessandro walked over to Anna and hugged her gently. "I have news. Today we signed a contract to restore a 10th century villa in Tuscany. 2 years of work." Anna knew this was his dream project. He had always loved historic buildings, and this job was a huge recognition of his skills. "That's wonderful," she said sincerely. "Does this mean we have to move?" "Not necessarily. We can go there on weekends. There's a guest house where we can stay." Over dinner, Alessandro shared all the details of the project. Julia listened with shining eyes. She loved old castles and dreamed of becoming an archaeologist. Anna watched them both, feeling grateful for the man beside her. Alessandro never tried to change her or fit her into his mold. Instead, he supported all her ideas, was proud of her studio's success, and listened with interest to her Moscow project stories. Most importantly, he never took her care for granted. After dinner, Julia went to her room to get ready for bed, and Anna and Alessandro stayed on the terrace. Rome stretched out below them in the evening glow, ancient domes, lit monuments, narrow streets with warm light in the windows. "What are you thinking about?" Alessandro asked. "About how much has changed," Anna admitted. "Sometimes it feels like the woman who lived in Moscow with Dima was a completely different person." "You were the same person," he said, taking her hand. "You just didn't know your worth." Anna nodded. He was right. Everything she had shown over these years, determination, creativity, the ability to make tough decisions, had always been there. She just hadn't been given the space to grow. "I got a letter from Lena today," she said. "Remember my friend from Moscow? She wrote that Dima has completely changed. He's a caring husband, an attentive father. She says the experience taught him a lot." "And how do you feel hearing that?" Anna thought for a moment. "Happy for him. And grateful. Without that chapter, I wouldn't be here with you." The next morning, they all drove to the villa in Tuscany. The trip took 3 hours, but passed quickly. Julia told them about the history of the towns they passed. Alessandro pointed out details in the architecture of roadside churches, while Anna sketched ideas for the future project. The villa was even better than they imagined. It was an old building with towers and arched windows, surrounded by vineyards. Inside, there were 15th century frescoes, marble floors, and carved ceilings. There was a lot of work to do, but the result was going to be amazing. "Dad, can we live here in the summer?" Julia asked while exploring the rooms. "Of course," Alessandro smiled. "This will be our summer home." Anna pictured it. Breakfast on the terrace with a view of the hills, evening walks through the vineyards, and long talks by the fireplace on winter nights. That evening, Anna got an unexpected call. The screen showed a Moscow number she didn't recognize. "Anna, it's Kristina. Do you remember me?" Anna was surprised. They hadn't spoken since they met in a cafe 5 years ago. "Of course I remember. How are you?" "I wanted to thank you." Kristina's voice trembled slightly. "Do you remember what we talked about that day?" Anna thought back to the meeting, a young, confused girl asking for advice about Dima. "Yes, I remember. What happened?" "I followed your advice. I didn't become a guarantor for his loans. It was the right choice. A month later, he found someone else. And I met the man of my dreams. We've been married for 4 years now, and we have 2 kids." Anna smiled. "I'm so happy for you." "You know," Kristina continued, "I often remember what you said, that love shouldn't demand sacrifices. At first, I didn't understand. Now I do. My husband never asks me to give up anything for him. He helps me grow instead." After the call, Anna sat for a long time thinking. How many women were stuck in the same traps she had been in? How many believed that love must come with pain, sacrifice, and endurance? Alessandro found her on the terrace. Everything okay? You look deep in thought. Anna told him about Kristina's call. He listened carefully and nodded. You know what amazes me about your story? How one right choice can change several lives. You improved your life. Dima learned a lesson and became a better husband and father. Kristina avoided the same trap and found real love. And I met the woman of my dreams. He smiled and kissed her. She leaned against him. He was right. Sometimes one brave decision starts a chain of good changes, and you only see the full effect years later. The next day, they returned to Rome. Anna threw herself into her new project, designing a country house for Moscow clients. Working remotely wasn't easy, but technology made it possible. That evening, while checking her email, she saw a message from an unknown sender. The subject said, "Thank you for the inspiration." It was from a woman named Maria in St. Petersburg. She shared her story. A controlling husband who watched her every move, a mother-in-law who treated her like a servant, and no personal life at all. I read your story and cried, Maria wrote. I saw myself in it and realized, I can't live like this. Yesterday, I filed for divorce. I'm scared, but I know it's the right thing to do. I want to be as strong as you. Anna read the email several times. She realized that the story she once wrote, mostly for herself, was helping other women find the courage to change their lives. Over the years, she had received more and more of these messages. Women shared their experiences, asked for advice, and thanked her for support. Slowly, Anna understood she could help not just through interior design, but by supporting people in difficult situations. Anna showed Alessandro the letter. He read it and nodded thoughtfully. Have you ever thought about writing a book? He asked. A book? About what? About how to find the strength to change your life. You see how many people need this kind of support. The idea sounded interesting. Anna really did have a lot of experience, her own and the stories of many women who had written to her. Maybe she could put it all together in a book. The next week, Julia came home with a certificate, first place in her school's Russian language competition. She was glowing with pride. I want to go to Moscow this summer, she announced. I want to see the city where Anna grew up. Alessandro and Anna exchanged smiles. They had been meaning to take a family trip to Russia for a long time, but work always got in the way. What do you want to see there? Anna asked. The Red Square, of course. The Tretiakov Gallery, the parks, and I want to try real Russian pancakes. Anna laughed. Julia studied Russian culture so passionately that sometimes she knew more about Russia than many Muscovites. That evening, they started planning the trip. 2 weeks in Moscow would be enough to show Julia the main sights and introduce her to Anna's friends. Anna had visited Moscow often for work, but always alone and only for a few days. Now she would get to show her hometown through the eyes of a tourist, which was exciting. Alessandro was also interested. He wanted to see the city where the woman he loved came from. It took a month to prepare. Julia read guidebooks and made lists of places to visit. Alessandro arranged meetings with Moscow architects. He wanted to meet colleagues there. Anna felt a strange excitement. She had been to Moscow just 6 months ago, but this time was different. This time she would be sharing it with her family. At Sheremetyevo Airport, they were met by Lena, Anna's only close friend from Moscow. She had taken time off work to help with sightseeing. When they hugged, Lena laughed. I was starting to think you'd become fully Italian. Julia immediately tried speaking Russian with her. Her accent was still noticeable, but she was so eager that Lena was impressed. The first week, they acted like typical tourists. Red Square made a huge impression on Julia. She took endless photos of St. Basil's Cathedral and couldn't believe humans had built it. Alessandro studied the architecture with professional curiosity, amazed at the mix of old churches and modern skyscrapers. Moscow reminds me of Rome, he said. History and modern life living side by side. Anna listened to their excitement and realized she was rediscovering her own city through their eyes. Things that seemed ordinary to her felt exotic and new to them. Then, in the middle of the week, something unexpected happened. While walking down Arbat Street, Anna spotted a familiar figure. It was Dima holding the hand of a little boy about 4 years old. A woman with a stroller walked beside them. Anna froze for a moment. In the past 5 years, she had seen him only a few times, always by accident. Dima noticed her too and stopped, looking unsure of what to do. Anna walked closer. "What brings you to Moscow?" Dima asked. "I came with my family," she replied calmly, pointing to Alessandro and Julia, who were looking at souvenirs in the shop nearby. Dima glanced over and nodded. "And this is my wife Svetlana, my son Maxim, and my daughter Sonia." Svetlana was a pleasant woman in her mid-30s, simple, genuine, and kind-eyed, nothing like Kristina or the Anna who had once been married to Dima. Maxim hid behind his father's leg, peeking at Anna with curiosity. He had something of Dima in him. The same eyes, the same smile. "You have a beautiful family," Anna said sincerely. Dima smiled, without any trace of the tension that used to hang over their past meetings. "Thanks. Is your husband Italian?" "Yes, he's an architect. And the girl is his daughter from his first marriage." They chatted a few more minutes about work and life. Dima explained he now worked in a small construction company, not a big salary, but interesting work. Svetlana was on maternity leave, but planned to return to her job as an accountant. "We live simply, but happily," he said. Anna thought he had finally understood what a real family was. She nodded. There was no bitterness in his words, no self-pity, just a simple statement of fact. Alessandro and Julia came over. Anna introduced everyone. Alessandro greeted Dima politely, and Julia tried to speak Russian to Maxim. "We're going to the puppet theater," Svetlana explained. "Maxim loves plays." "And we're heading to the Tretiakov Gallery," Anna replied. "Julia's studying Russian painting." They said goodbye warmly, without awkwardness. As they walked away, Alessandro asked, "Was that your ex-husband?"
Yes.
"He looks calm, content with life." Anna agreed. Dima really had changed. The restless energy he once had was gone, replaced with steadiness and self-confidence. "You know what's interesting?" Julia said suddenly. "Uncle Dima looked at you without any anger. But you used to fight, right?" Anna smiled at the girl's insight. "We didn't fight. We just realized we weren't right for each other." That evening, after Julia went to bed, Anna told Alessandro more about the meeting. He listened closely, asking a few questions. "Are you glad he's doing well?" he asked at the end.
Very glad.
"If he had stayed unhappy, I would have felt guilty forever. But now I know things worked out the way they were meant to." Alessandro hugged her. "You have a kind heart. Not every woman can be happy for someone who once hurt her." "He didn't hurt me," Anna said. "He just wasn't the right person for me, and I wasn't the right person for him. We both became happier when we realized that." The next day, they went to Sergeev Posad. Julia was amazed by the golden domes and old frescoes. Alessandro studied the ancient architecture, and Anna thought about how right her choice had been 5 years ago. Back then it had felt like her world was collapsing, when really, a better world was just beginning. On their last day in Moscow, Lena organized a farewell dinner. A few mutual friends came, including Marina, a blog reader who had recently divorced. She looked tired but determined, speaking about her plans to rent an apartment, find a new job, and start living for herself. "It's scary," she admitted, "but not as much as in the beginning. Your story made me realize I'm not alone." Anna promised to keep in touch. Over the years, she had built a whole network of women who had gone through the same thing. They helped each other with advice, support, and simply by understanding one another. On the plane back to Rome, Julia was flipping through photos and talking about her impressions. She liked Moscow, but she still wanted to go home. "Papa, will we come back to Russia again?" she asked. "Of course. Maybe next year we'll show you St. Petersburg," Alessandro replied. Anna listened to them and felt deeply content. Her two worlds, Russian and Italian, fit together perfectly now. She no longer felt torn between her past and her present. At home, new projects were waiting. Anna had gotten a big job, designing a hotel in the center of Rome. It was a real breakthrough for her career. Alessandro started restoring an old Tuscan villa, and Anna was seriously thinking about writing a book. Meeting Maria and other women had shown her that such a book could help many people. She began organizing her own story along with the stories of others, adding practical tips. The idea wasn't for an autobiography, but a guide for people who wanted to change their lives. Alessandro loved the idea and even offered to help translate it into Italian. He said the problem of codependent relationships wasn't only a Russian issue. That autumn, Anna got an unexpected offer. A Moscow publisher, having heard about her plans, offered her a book contract. They told her that not only regular readers but also psychologists and family counselors followed her blog. "This is a sign," Alessandro said. "The universe is telling you, right?" Anna agreed. It took her 6 months to finish the book. She mostly wrote in the evenings, while Julia did her homework and Alessandro worked on his drawings. The book was published in the spring and quickly became popular. Letters started arriving from all over the country, women thanking her for support and sharing their own success stories. But the most surprising letter came from Dima. "Anna, I read your book. I want to thank you for not letting me stay a selfish, immature man, for making me grow up. Svetlana read it too and says you're a wise woman. I wish you happiness. Dmitry." Anna read the letter several times. That was the final closure to their story. Everyone had gotten what they deserved. Everyone had grown. A year later, she and Alessandro had a son. Little Marco became the center of the family's universe. Julia, now a teenager, adored her baby brother and helped take care of him. Anna looked at her son and wondered what kind of man he would grow up to be, raised in a home full of love and respect, where everyone valued each other and themselves, and where there was no place for manipulation or exploitation. Alessandro turned out to be a wonderful father, patient, caring, and loving. He shared all the childcare equally, never treating it as something special. "He's our son," he would say when Anna thanked him. "Why should I help? I'm just doing my job as a father." That was the difference between true partnership and a selfish attitude. Alessandro wasn't helping Anna with the baby. He was a full parent. When Marco turned 1, Anna received an offer to have her book translated into English. It turned out that the problems she wrote about were universal across many cultures. Now, holding her son and looking at Julia's happy face as she taught him his first words in 3 languages, Anna knew one thing: she was living exactly the life she deserved.